Great group. Quick show of hands, how many people here are students? Just a show of hands. I love that. And staff? And anyone faculty? Any faculty here? I love faculty, but they're so critical. I feel like I have to really, not that you guys aren't, you guys are critical too, but man, sometimes faculty are like, but what about blah, blah, blah. So, although faculty are always welcome to comment. My name is Devin Wicks, and I'm from University of California, Berkeley. I'm the fitness and wellness director there on campus. An alum, so I've actually technically been working there since I was a student, believe it or not. I know, right? Crazy. And I'm actually here, I'm here to talk about one of my sort of most favorite and sort of passionate subjects, and that is how do we change behaviors? And as you guys know, you read the little blurb, right? Today we're going to talk about like behavior change. And I'm hoping today, when you walk out of here, we're going to do some interactive things today, and we're going to talk about some really basic concepts. I'm hoping that when you leave today, you can walk away with at least a really good way of thinking about behaviors. All right? A little backstory on me. So I used to weigh almost 300 pounds. Okay? And the stuff that I did to get me to where I am today, we're going to talk about today. All right? So right now all I'm going to say is when I was in high school, I weighed almost 300 pounds. I used to come home from school, right? I lived in a rural area. Come home from school, turn the TV on, sit down, start snacking. So I wasn't moving, right? And what was I doing? I was adding calories and eating, right? That led me to where I was. Something changed, okay? And I started going down a different path. And remind me at the end of this talk, and we'll talk about how that happened, all right? Just remind me. Sometimes I forget, all right? So remind me. But today we're going to talk about the principles of behavior design. And we've actually used this on our campus quite a bit. So on our campus, I'm in charge of the faculty, staff, and student health and wellness programs. And we have all kinds of different things that we do. All right? And one of the things that we started with a while back was we were looking at how can we get people to make sustainable behavior change around their health. And one of my work colleagues was looking high and low and far and wide to try and figure out what are the things that we really need to think about. And she came across this researcher down at Stanford University. Go Bears, but I'm UC Berkeley grad, if you know that's our rival. I still love Stanford, but that's our rival. His name is BJ Fogg, all right? And his area of expertise, that's him right there jumping over something. His area of expertise is really in psychology, but more specifically, the intersection between how we behave and how our environment, more specifically, how stuff like this has changed how we do, how we act. Now, for some of you, you grew up with this. So for you, you never kind of really saw or thought about how we reacted before. But for those who might have been around before cell phone, right? If you heard a little ding, did you ever do anything? If you heard like a little beep beep, did you ever stop and go, what was that? I mean, you might go, what was that? But we don't do that now. When we hear a little beep beep, what's the first thing we do? We check our phone, right? We're like, something's going on. And just as a word right here, feel free to leave your ringers on for this. You are absolutely free to do that in mine, all right? Because part of what we're going to talk about is how this thing, this as an example, has really changed how we interact. And what can we learn from what happened here to apply it to other things we want people to do. Now, quick show of hands again. How many of you guys are sort of do health and wellness stuff? Anyone do health, wellness, exercise, nutrition, things like that? How many of you do sustainability things? Like, okay, are there other types of people who have other focuses in this room? What is it?
I'm a health inspector.
Health inspector. So your job is to get people to do what though?
To make sure nobody gets sick from what they eat or the environment they're in.
So like to be safe, right? That's a habit, right? Any other types of things in here that we do that you guys that work on or that we're interested in? Yes.
Food security.
Food security. Fascinating topic, and it'll be really interesting to see how you apply this to your work. All right? Because are there behaviors you want people to do? What are they?
To shop at the grocery store instead of buying food.
Awesome. So there might be some really great, interesting ways that you can apply this to the work you're doing. All right. So that's basically to say that the framework that we're talking about today doesn't live in health and wellness. The framework is a subtext to all of that, right? And you can apply this idea, this way of thinking about behaviors, to all kinds of things. I work at a university. Some of you have some staff here. Is this a bureaucratic institution? right? How many times, and this is for students too, how many times have you guys had this, okay, well if you want to, we want you to do this thing, but first you have to fill out this entire online form and you have to add all this information and blah, 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 and then you get in trouble if you don't do that. Has anyone ever had that experience here? I certainly have had it, right? So this way of thinking can actually inform how we think about even those kinds of systems and services when we're trying to get people to do things. So what BJ did was, he said, how does stuff like this, how has it affected us, okay? And he taught this class a while back at Stanford, using his concept. And we'll get into the concept a little bit later on. He co-taught it with a computer science engineer, right? And he said, okay, we're going to co-teach this class. And this was back when Facebook was popular, but it was really starting to take off. Like, people were really getting into it. And the assignment that they had was this. The students had to design a feature for Facebook and then launch it and see how successful it was. And he said, it has to be simple. You're going to use my methodology. And they had to kind of go over the weekend, go home and work on it, launch it and see what happens. So there was this one student who went in there and he said, okay. He goes home, and like all students, when do you guys do your homework assignments? If it's a weekend and it's due on Monday, when do you do the homework assignment? Sunday night, right? Sunday night, this guy's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So he decided to create a virtual hug for Facebook. I could tag you with the virtual hug tag. I just gave you a virtual hug. All right? And then you're like, oh my God, how did it feel? It felt good, right? I wouldn't even touch her, right? I just gave her a virtual. And then what do you think you would do? You would give someone else a virtual hug, all right? By the end of that semester, this kid was getting VC offers, venture capital offers, for money because his little app thing went viral, okay? And so BJ has done a lot of work. There are key people at Facebook who have brought him in, actually who are students. He's also, there's a Weight Watchers thing called Weight Watchers 360. They brought him in to look at all their programming to figure out how they could apply his methodology, all right? And then a couple of his students started this little company you may have heard of. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. You know what that is, right? And the idea behind it is that they thought about how behaviors really occur and how we can leverage that. And that's what we're going to cover today. So that's kind of enough of the history of it. You can look him up online. He has a lot of stuff. I'm giving you sort of the top line view of things. But he definitely has a lot of research online. And all of this is his. None of it is mine. So I want to own that up front, right? I'm just a huge fan, okay? What are behaviors? Behaviors are things we do, right? So, I run 3 times a week. Is that a behavior? Yeah, something we do, right? What about, I brush after every meal? Is that a behavior? Awesome. Or, I eat a kale salad twice a week for lunch. Is that a behavior? Yeah. What is I lost 10 pounds. Is that a behavior? What is that? It's a result. It's an outcome, right? Dude, would these 2 things right here lead to that outcome? Yeah. So these are behaviors that could get you there, right? What is, my dentist said I have perfect gum. I have perfect gums. Is that a behavior or an outcome? It's an outcome, right? Could something like this lead to that? Okay, great. So we're going to have a good foundation of there are outcomes and there are behaviors. And sometimes it gets a little bit murky. So one of the things I want you to think about today is, as we're talking about behaviors, and I'm going to ask you to design your own, are you looking for an outcome or a behavior? And it's okay to start with an outcome. That's where we oftentimes start. But I'm going to ask you, if you get in that world, how do you back up and get into the behavior, the process, the thing that leads you to that? All right? Now I have a question for you. There are a lot of behaviors, and these 2 images represent 2 different behaviors. What is kind of different about these images right here? There's sort of 2 big themes right here. I know it's a little bit kind of esoteric, but this represents a certain behavior, and this represents a different type of behavior. What's the difference? And feel free to shout. I love interaction, so feel free to shout it out, or I start calling on people. And if you don't, just take a wild guess. What's the difference between these 2? They represent something that's happening.
The dog's like a learned behavior.
It's a learned behavior, and what is he doing?
He's like waiting for the ball to come.
Right, and I have a question. So now what is he doing? He's going up here. He puts the ball down. And he doesn't, could he do this forever?
Yeah.
He could just keep, my dog would do this forever if he ever figured out how. Right? What's this other one right here kind of represent? It represents something.
Fishing.
A fishing. So from the fish, so here's the dog's point of view. I got this ball, I'm doing this behavior. What's the fish's point of view if they see this? He gets 1 shot. right? And then what happens? We're done, right? So the idea is there are some behaviors that we call like one-time behaviors, and there are other behaviors that we call sort of, you know, span or a lot of behaviors. This right here, we tend to call habits, right? This is a habit, kind of, right? I can do this thing, I get a little enjoyment out of it, blah, blah. So we're starting to sort of develop what kinds of behaviors there are. And there are a lot of them, and we'll get to those things. But I have a question. Has anyone ever here wanted to change a behavior? Show of hands if you've ever wanted to change a behavior. Keep them up. Did it happen? So put a behavior in your head. Did it happen? Okay, I'm going to get some. I see the hands going down. Some, Okay, so what's a behavior that you tried and didn't succeed at? Or you kind of didn't do it well enough even. Now, let me take that.
Consistently get enough sleep.
Consistently get enough sleep. Well, I see heads nodding. Preach your choir, man. That was me last night. Get enough sleep, right? Didn't get enough sleep, right? So you're kind of working on it, and sometimes you get it and sometimes you don't, right? What if I could give you the magic recipe that you were like, it's going to happen all the time? Would you be like, oh my God, this is great?
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Sure, of course. Is there anyone else who has an experience with a behavior that didn't succeed very well or didn't succeed at all? Yeah, we do it happen all the time. Anyone? Yes?
Like training enough for like a backpacking trip.
Yes! So his outcome goal is a backpacking trip, and you did it, but maybe you felt like you didn't train enough? Right. So what if I said, man, we can hack your brain and figure out how to get you to train a lot more? Ooh, that was fun. Oh, there we go. So oftentimes we're presented with these things that we want to do that rely on us sort of doing a habit. Going to bed early, turning out the lights, turning off the cell phones, you know, creating this ongoing habit, or training, setting up a program where I do it all the time so I'm prepared for this outcome, right? So behaviors sometimes happen and sometimes don't, and we want to really understand why that occurs. So I'm going to teach you in 2 minutes, and I need someone to time me, okay? I'm going to teach you in 2 minutes how to talk about a behavior. This is like my elevator pitch on how to, if I had to walk up to somebody and say, Devin, teach me about a behavior. How do behaviors happen? This is my 2-minute elevator pitch. So who wants to volunteer to time me? Okay. I'm going to use you actually. So you just sit right there. And Katie, you're going to time me? Okay. So hopefully, now I'm a little rusty. Okay. So if I go over a little bit, don't throw me out. But in 2 minutes, I'm going to teach you how to talk about a behavior. Okay, you ready? Ready, Katie?
Yep.
Okay. Go. A behavior occurs when 3 things happen at the same time. When you have the motivation to do the behavior, the ability to do the behavior, and there's a trigger. And a trigger is something that says, do it now. Hey, how are you? All right? What was the behavior? Shook hands. What was the ability? I walked over and I stuck my hand. What was the trigger? I stuck my hand out. The trigger is something that says, do it now. All right? And these things are related. If any one of these things is missing, the behavior does not occur. If I stood over here and said, hey, Dakota, how are you? Would the behavior have occurred?
No.
Why?
You're too far.
I'm too far. The ability, it's too hard, right? Okay. So these are related. We're going to talk about how they're related. On this sort of vertical axis right here, we're going to label this axis motivation. And in our lives, we can either have high motivation to do a behavior, or we can have low motivation to do a behavior, right? Across this bottom side right here, we're going to call this ability. And things can either be easy to do, or they can be hard to do. And what we hope is, for the behavior that we want, when we trigger it, that the person is highly motivated, and it's easy to do, so that when we trigger it, the behavior occurs. But oftentimes, what ends up happening is, we start triggering behaviors and they don't occur. And we keep triggering, and we keep triggering, and we keep triggering, and nothing occurs. So these two, there's a relationship between these two ideas, and this is called an action line, right? And the idea is, if I can make the behavior easy enough, even if you have low motivation, the behavior will occur. I'm done.
1:42.
Oh! The best time yet. What do you guys think of that? Pretty good?
Yeah.
Okay, so, what do you guys think? Does that seem kind of intuitive? Is there anything that sounds like, like that doesn't make sense to me? Or do you guys have any like, are we good with this? Because you know what's going to happen? I'm going to ask you guys to do the same thing. Everybody in this room is going to teach how to talk about behavior. You're going to do exactly this. And we're going to do it here in about 3 minutes. So now's your chance to ask questions. Does this stuff make sense to you? Okay, so I need you guys to take notes. All right? I'm going to do it one more time with feeling. Take notes on this because as soon as this slide deck is done, as soon as this slide is done, we're going to break into groups of like 3 or 4. And I'm going to ask you guys to go to an easel, and I'm going to give each person 2 minutes to quickly talk about a behavior. What do you guys think? Can you guys do that? I see some hesitation. Are you sure? Okay. All right. So one more time with feeling. What's the first thing I did? And you're actually going to draw it on paper. I just had to make it big. All right. So first thing I did was what? I labeled what? So this is my big dry erase board. What did I do at the very top?
What behavior?
Right. I said B equals MAT. Right. And then what did I say about that?
Motivation.
If one's missing.
Yeah, so wait, what's B first? B is what?
Behavior.
Okay, and what's M?
Motivation.
What's A?
Ability.
Okay, what's T?
Trigger.
And I said for a behavior occurred, 3 things have to happen
At
at the
the same
same time, simultaneously, right? And I said if one of them doesn't occur, the behavior doesn't happen. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, so you guys ready for that? And then what did I do next? Do you remember?
You did an action.
I gave an example, right? I walked over and I shook hands. I said, here's the example. And then what did I say? What did I do? I walked back and I said, okay, now if I don't do that, right, I did it. I gave an example of it not happening, right? So you guys good? So I want you guys to think of an example. It could be answer your phone. Pick an example, because you're going to teach this to your small group. Okay, so then what did I do next? I talked about motivation. I drew a line. You're going to draw a line, and you're going to write motivation. And you're going to say sometimes people have high motivation, and other times people have low motivation, and that changes throughout our lives. And then what did I do next?
Ability.
I drew an ability line, right? And I said, and this is ability, and sometimes things are what?
Easy.
And then sometimes things are, okay, great. And then what did I say next? What we hope. What do we hope happens?
Did you give
That
them
it's easy and tiring.
Yes, what we hope is when we want somebody to do a behavior, that it is that they have,
High
motivation.
and that the behavior is,
Easy to do.
so that when we
Trigger.
trigger the,
Behavior.
it
Happens.
happens. Yes. Science. Graphs. Okay, and then what did I say next? I said sometimes, or a lot of the time, we try and what? Trigger a,
Behavior.
and
It's hard.
it doesn't happen, right? And so you're going to draw a bunch of sad faces. We keep triggering. That's what happens, right? We keep triggering. Do this. Do this. It's like my mom trying to call me. My mom will call me 5 times. I'm like, Mom, if I'm not answering the phone, it means I can't. My ability's not here right now. You can trigger as much as you want. Then she calls my friends. I'm older than most of you. My mom still does this. All right. So, and then what did I say? I said there's a relationship between these two, right? And what did I draw next? An action line, right? And then what did I say? I said what we really want to try and do is make the behavior easier to do so that when you trigger it, go back, when you trigger it, it happens. Is that right? Okay, did you guys take copious notes on that? Are you sure? Okay, so here's what I want. We have 7, we might need 1 or 2 more. Can I get some help in the back? Put 3 or 4 sheets up. I want you guys to stand up. Wait, before I do that, really quick, let me explain it. Okay, what's going to happen? You're going to break in, I know let it go, right? You're going to break into groups of 3 or 4. There are pens that we're going to hand out to each person. All right? You're going to walk over here. I'm going to give you a go time. You're going to teach your small group exactly that. And then you're going to trade off. What do you guys think? Are you guys ready for that? Participation is required. I want you guys to feel super confident about talking about behaviors. All right? So go ahead now, stand up, and I have a little dingy thing, and I'll ding it 2 minutes. If you guys are faster than I am, and I hope you are, take a moment to talk about how the person did. Did it work? Did it not work? And then go ahead and switch on your own. All right? So 3 or 4 should give us about 6 to 8 minutes with a little bit of transition time. All right? So what we'll do is at right before 11:30, we're going to come back. All right? Okay, on your mark and set, go. And I'll leave this up.
about an action line, you think of like how it's going down right there, and then you're like, when you think about it in like econ or like science, then it's like, oh, it's less likely that's happening
Got
as
it.
it goes down. So
Got
that's
it.
what we were kind of stuck on.
Okay. So did you end up working it out and figuring out how it works, or do you have a question about it?
So I feel like it's not so much like the likelihood, or it's more.
This is conceptual, so absolutely.
I feel like to the line, it's as like something's high motivation and hard to do.
Yeah.
Like you're still likely to do it.
Right, right.
The same with like as it's easy to do, even if you have low motivation, you're like also likely to do it.
If it's low motivation,
But it's easier to do.
but it's exactly
So
right.
you're still able to do it.
That's
So-
exactly right. Does that make sense? Like, if what she pointed out here is, in order for this behavior to occur, if it's in this world right here, if your motivation is here, what's the thing I have to do to make the behavior occur? I have to change that behavior a little bit, right? And keep changing it until it crosses this action line. It is conceptual. And that's exactly what I wanted you to get to was, in our world, and we'll talk about this shortly, this changes a lot. And as somebody who's designing something, I can influence this to some degree, but what do I have better control over influencing, this or this? I can control ability so much more by just asking the behavior to be different, right? And we'll talk about that. That's exactly what the takeaway. So awesome, I love that. So Barbara and I were talking about this, and Barbara does fundraising, right? And in her world, she goes, oh my gosh, this works for fundraising, right? So if Barbara wants me to call, she's like, Devin, you know what, here's the deal. Engineering needs cash, and you are filthy rich, because I know you work for the university, and you guys get paid a lot. That's a joke.
Yeah.
Devin, engineering needs cash. I'm like, Barb, I am strapped. She's like, okay, well, Devin, how about this? What if you just gave $1? Could you do that? I'm like, I could totally give $1. So I go and I give her $1, and then bing, I get $1, and she goes, oh my God, Devin, you are so awesome. I'm like, I know, I'm so awesome. And then Barb calls me next and goes, Devin, you are so awesome. Could you give $2? I'm like, I could totally give $2, right? I gave $1 last week. That's easy. I can give $2. Bing, you're awesome. So it applies the same. It's capacity building. It's how do you build for whatever it is you're trying to do. So awesome. Okay, let's go into the details a little more. All right. So we talked about motivation, right? And then motivation, what do you have? You can either have high or okay.
Something in between.
Motivation, right? Motivation, you can either have high or low motivation. Here's the trick or the challenge about motivation. We often talk about getting people to do things, right? But we usually we talk about it in the world of like, let me incentivize them to do it. I am trying to motivate you to do that, right? How many of you guys stay 100% motivated throughout your entire life? Right? How many of you guys stay 100% motivated throughout your day? How many of you are 100% motivated throughout this hour of this talk? Feel free to admit that you're not. Oh, gee, it's garbage. Barb's got my back, man. I love that. Our motivation changes over time, right? And that's the thing we need to recognize. If we're designing for behavior for some individual, whether it's for ourselves or our family members, or we're doing sustainability, or whatever that thing is, people's motivations to do behaviors are going to change over time. Now, there's a great thing about this. When people's motivations are high, you should automatically try and take advantage of that behavior right then and there. They are willing, when your motivation is high, you are willing to do hard things, right? When motivation is high, you can get people to do hard things. That's when you go as quickly as possible, trigger the behavior, and make it happen. Because it's high. But recognize it's not going to be high. And there are a few ways that there are things we do to adjust or to try and get you guys to motivate. They sort of fall in in 6 categories. And the first one is, if we're trying to move motivation either up or down, we can focus on sensation for people, right? We can focus on pain or pleasure, right? Like, if you do this thing, you're going to get this awesome thing and you're going to feel great. Or if you don't do this thing, right, you're going to get a punishment. That's the pain or pleasure. We're adjusting your motivation. So those are two variables you can use to adjust motivation. There's also anticipation, right? There's hope and fear, right? If I do this thing, I am going to win $1 million, or someone's going to give me a bunch of money, right? That's hope. Or fear. If I don't do this thing, what does it do? It pushes our motivation down, right? There's also belonging. And this is actually a really powerful one because this has to do with all of us. There's social exception, or there's social rejection and social acceptance. When I did the handshake thing, which one of these 3 things was I relying on for motivation? I'm relying on one of them. Social acceptance, right? If Dakota didn't shake my hand, there's some peer pressure on her, isn't there? Everyone is watching her. we all know what's supposed to happen when I say, hey, how are you? She's almost did it right now. Thanks to your kind of do this, right? Right? There's social pressure right there. So there is some ways, and there are times when we want to use motivation. The secret is know what you're doing with it and how that's going to affect the behavior you want, right? But this is an especially powerful one because we are social creatures by nature, right? And we can use that. Sustainability uses this all the time, don't we? In sustainability, like we use the idea if you don't walk away and recycle, people are like, that person doesn't recycle. They suck, right? Right? Or oh my God, they're so awesome. They like totally like they put all of their greens in one. And they, right? We love that stuff. So you can use motivation, but almost any motivation thing you're going to use is going to fall into one of these categories. All right? So just know what those are. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying there are other tools we can use. Let's talk a little about triggers. Okay? And triggers are the thing that says do it now, right? We like to think of these things as prompts, or a call to action, or an offer, or a request, right? This is the thing that says do it now. Now, in our world, we have what I call cold triggers and hot triggers. And a hot trigger is something I can take action on right now. Does anyone have an example of a hot trigger? It's a thing that says do it right now. Yes?
Going to the emergency room.
Okay, so explain it.
Like you break your ankle, you have to go to the emergency room immediately.
Okay, so what's the trigger?
You break your ankle.
Okay, that could be the pain. Or yeah, something happened to me, right? What's even a more immediate trigger? Something we do in our daily lives. I bet it's happened once. Yes?
What's it like? Push notifications?
Yes! Those are brilliant. Push notifications. Does everyone know what a push notification is? What is it? Go ahead and explain it.
It's like when your phone says like, oh, you got a message on Facebook, or you got a text message.
Hacked our brains, didn't they? How many of you guys are like, oh, I got to see what that thing is, right? That is a do it now, because I can do it right now. What's an example of a cold trigger, maybe?
Like wanting to get in shape for summer.
Okay, and what's the trigger, though? What's the
The
trigger?
trigger is wanting to like be in better shape for summer, so you can go to the beach and like wear a bathing suit.
Okay, so but what's triggering the behavior?
Triggering behavior is like,
Maybe you see somebody who's in shape.
yeah.
That could be it, right?
Yeah.
I see
more
them
the
in shape,
outcome
I
of the
need to do
trigger.
that, but I can't do it right now, maybe. Okay, good. I saw a hand go up to the
I
back.
was just going to give an example.
Like what?
I was
What's a
going to say,
cold
like,
trigger?
you see a magazine and it reminds you.
Yes! How many of you guys see the little ads in magazines? Fill this ad out, and you'll get this thing, right? I can't do it right. I can fill it out, but I don't get the thing right now, right? I think that's exactly right. And if you look at sort of phones have hacked that with their push notifications, and they've taken that cold trigger and they've made it a hot trigger. My favorite hot trigger, not my favorite, but I guess it is Amazon.com. They know my name, they know my credit card, they know what I love, and they send me a little thing saying, you love this thing, push this button and you get it. Have you guys seen that?
Yes.
Dangerous. Like, just horribly but amazing. Because it completely hacks you, right? If I push this button, I get this thing coming to me right away. And they're literally now trying to like fly it to you with like, you know, with drones, right? Like, when that happens, it's on. Well, I'm done. All of that big pile of money the university pays me is out the door. So there's some different kinds of triggers. And remember, going back to this right here, we have high motivation, low motivation, and we have easy to do and hard to do. Different triggers have different effects. So if you're up in this world right here and the behavior's not happening, your trigger could be a facility trigger, like the Amazon.com thing, right? It sends me a trigger, and it sort of just says, here's a little tiny bit of motivation because you want this thing, and I'm going to do it right now for you. I made the ability easier to do by doing that, right? Down here is a spark trigger, right? A trigger down here is like, okay, I just need a little bit more motivation. You know, it might be Barb just calling me that one more time for that $1. Hey, you know what? I just saw your friend. They gave $1 too. Okay, it's a little bit of motivation. She's on the phone. I can do it now, right? A signal trigger is a trigger that's like, I am highly motivated. I am ready to do the action. I just need something to make me do it. My favorite example of this is a stoplight. You're sitting in your car at a stoplight. All the cars are around you. Your car is running great. Your foot's on the gas pedal, or actually on the brake technically, right? And that thing goes from red to green. What do? You go, right? So that if people live in this area, you are super awesome. Okay, so just understand that there are different kinds of triggers, all right? And you can do a few things with them to make them happen. But you have to have the behavior with the motivation and ability before this works. And if they're like on that action line somewhere and they're just up close to it, and you have a sense of where they are, understand, do I have to give them just a little bit of motivation? Or maybe they're highly motivated, I just didn't make it quite easy enough to do. So here's the trigger, do it easier, do it now. All right? All right, fine. Okay, so you're going to design a trigger. You're going to design something that says do it now. First one is channel. What medium are you going to use to trigger this behavior? Is it going to be a sign? Or are you going to do a push notification, right? Am I going to be, you know, walking down the hallway and I see a sign that says take the stairs instead of the elevator, right? Those could be different types of media. So as you're designing your trigger for the behavior, think through how you're going to deliver that trigger. All right? Timing. Okay, so what if I have the ability and I'm motivated, but maybe the abilities I just come at the wrong time. Okay, so it's hard to do. I'm up here in that facilitator world at the wrong time, right? And I try and do a trigger. If the trigger's at the wrong time and I can't do the behavior, even though I'm highly motivated, maybe it's just a timing issue with your trigger, right? Maybe the stairs are way over there and I haven't gotten there yet. But the sign is like right here, take the stairs today. So to see how that wouldn't work, if the sign's right here but the stairs are out there, I can't do it. By the time I get over there, I may not take the stairs. So it's a timing issue. So understand when you time your triggers. Framing it. Words, visuals, or sounds best prompt, right? If I played my little beep from my phone ringing, everyone would look at their phone, right? So you can use common things that we already know to trigger the behavior. And then, of course, frequency. And this is the trick, okay? How often will you trigger? And the reason why this is a trick, because if you have to trigger multiple times, what might be the issue? You might have a low motivation or you don't have the ability to do it, right? So if you're triggering something and you think the trigger's the problem, then fix the trigger. But be aware that might not be the problem. All right? So if you're having, I'm going to keep triggering, that should be one of your cues to step back and say, this, we might need to rethink this. Okay. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because I want to make sure we get to the next thing. Oh, ability. So there are five abilities right now, five things you can do to make a behavior easy. And this is going to be really critical in your behavior design. Okay? Those things, what they do, time, money, we'll go over it so you need to write them down. Time, money, physical effort, brain cycles, and motivation. Those things take your ability and they move it to the easier to do side of things. Alright? So here's what I want you guys to do. We're going to go through these simplicity factors, and then if you can hand out the paper for me. Alright, awesome. So, there are 5 factors that you can use to make the ability easier to do. Alright? And the first one is time. My favorite thing is the gym. The first thing people say is, I don't have enough time to go to the gym. Right? So if I want to make the behavior easier to do, I have to play with that. I need to give them more time, or I need to take away that time and by saying you don't need to work out as long. Right? So if you have more time, you can make a behavior occur. Money. If I gave you all the money in the world and said, I want you to get in shape, you might do it, right? I'd hire a trainer, I'd hire a nutritionist, I'd do everything I need to do. I'd make it super easy for myself because I have that resource. I have enough money, right? So if the behavior you want requires money and it's not happening, think about what you can do to make money less impactful, right? Make the behavior cheaper to do, give them the resource they need, give them the money, right? Physical effort. Okay? Is this physically hard to do? Do I have to walk all the way over here and shake her hand to do that, right? In the exercise world, this is particularly challenging because we want you to be physical, right? But what we do in the exercise world is we say, okay, you know what? You don't have to work out 3 times a week. Today I want you to put on your tennis shoes and walk to the mailbox and walk back and call that a workout. What's the difference between those 2 behaviors right there? It's a lot, right? I made one significantly easier. Mental effort. Is it too complicated for somebody? Here at the University of Bureaucracy, this always happens, right? I don't understand how to do this. What would be a way of solving that problem? Teach them, right? Teach them how to do it. That might be the thing that's the problem. All right? Non-routine. This is an exceptionally powerful one. If it's not part of our daily routine, right, is the behavior going to occur? Maybe not. What if we can hook the behavior to part of our daily routine? That was more likely to happen, exactly. All right, so here's what we're going to do. Let's skip ahead here. Let's skip this. You don't need to see this part. This is a bit different behavior. I will talk about this afterwards if you guys have questions. Boom, boom. All right. So here's what we're going to do. I have my magic wand people right here, and you should have paper somewhere near you. Did you guys hand out the paper already? So my magic wand people are going to come around, and they're going to hand out a magic wand to all of you guys. You guys get to keep them, especially if you're going to be in the next group. So and then you're also going to have some paper. And here's what I want you guys to do. You're going to design your own behavior today. Okay, so what I want you to do right now is I want you to think about what's an aspiration or a desired outcome that you want to have. Something relevant to you today right now. Think about it. Does everyone have one? Does everyone have some sort of aspiration or desired outcome you want to do? So just think about one. Because we're going to design a behavior for that. Okay, and this can be the outcome thing. I want to sleep more. I want to go to the dentist and have him see your gums. And then here's what I want you to do. So you guys all have that in your head? You guys have your aspiration, your outcome? Just keep that in your head. And here's what I want you to do. This is the magic wand technique I'm teaching you guys. And it's a great way of thinking out of the box. And this would be something I do with people when I ask them. I ask them this. If you could wave a magic wand to get anyone to do anything, what would you have them do? Right? And it could be for a one time, it can be for a span of time, or it can be from now on. So I always want to give them the option to pick a behavior that works. So I want you to do the same thing. It's your turn to do a magic wand. If you could wave a magic wand to get yourself to do anything related to your aspiration right now, what would you have yourself do? Go ahead and write it down right now. Someone, yeah.
Learn Spanish grammar.
Learn Spanish grammar. So what's the aspiration?
Like to speak Spanish.
Speak Spanish fluently. So the behavior is learn Spanish grammar. Beautiful. Anyone else?
Go to office hours once a week for each class.
Oh my God. Did you take this before? She's just an A student. That's beautiful. What's the aspiration?
To go to office hours.
To go to office hours. To do more, to engage your professors more. Okay. Another one?
Drink 8 glasses of water.
Drink 8 glasses of water. I love that. If you want to be hydrated, if you want to maybe not drink other stuff, right? Awesome. Any other? No judgments. No judgments. Any others want to share? Okay, great. So we have some ideas. What was the aspiration for you? Just out of curiosity, was it?
Be hydrated.
Be hydrated. Great. And behaviors, drink 8 glasses. I saw a hand go up. Okay. So here's what I want you to do. That was your magic wand. Now it's time to crispify. So you might need to flip over your paper. It's time to crispify your target behavior. So your behavior is drink 8 glasses. Your behavior in the back was learn Spanish grammar. So I'm going to ask you to make that much crispier. Before you do that, let's talk about what that means. Crispify basically means, how many of you guys know what SMART goals are? What are SMART goals? S is?
Specific.
M is?
Measurable.
A is?
Attainable.
R is?
Relevant.
T is? So we take something that is kind of esoteric, and what do? We make it smart. Okay, that's another way of talking about crispifying. I'm going to give you something a little more specific. I want you to use this magic formula. You're going to take your behavior, and you're going to do this. You're going to say who is doing what, how often, using what method. All right. So right now, flip your paper over. Take the behavior, and I want you to apply this little formula. I am doing this thing, blah, 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 so many times a week, using what tool or what method. So take your behavior and crispify it. And here's a test for it. And I'll give you a minute to do this. A test for it is this. You should be able to state the behavior clearly enough so the person sitting next to you would understand it in the same exact way as you do. So crispify it, and I'm going to ask you, once you've crispified it, turn to the person next to you and see if they understand it like you do. And if it doesn't work, you might need to make it crispier. Okay, let's do a quick wrap up now. Oh, most important, you guys celebrate your successes. Because here's the deal. Everything about this, we call this a momentum, we call this success momentum, is tied to the fact that you're awesome and I'm being successful in my behavior. These things don't have zero sum. It's like, if the behavior doesn't occur, it's not like it's just a zero. There's actually a negative consequence. So if you're looking at getting somebody to do a behavior, whether it's yourself or somebody else, you need to create it so that no matter what, they are successful. Because if they're successful, you can tie it to a little celebration that I'm being awesome. Does that make sense? All right, so here we go. Quick wrap up. Your goal always is to put hot triggers in front of highly motivated people. That's your ultimate goal. If you can't do that, you need to figure out how to get there. And there are ways to do that. The first thing you want to do is select the precise behavior you want to have happen. And then translate those outcomes and goals into behaviors and be very specific. Go from the aspirational to the actual behavior. Number 2, you want to make the behavior super easy to do, right? Remember, simplicity above all changes behavior. We can use motivation if we want to, but we also have a way of making it simpler and then shaping that behavior. Number 3, make sure the trigger is in place. If you don't have that trigger, how are you going to make the behavior occur? Design the trigger for it. What will prompt that behavior? Some triggers, like Devin going to walk and brush his teeth because he already does that, is kind of natural. It's built in, it's anchored, right? Others, we're going to have to design. So as you're looking at the work that you guys are either working on as a student, or as faculty, staff, or yourself, what are the things, what are the triggers you're going to use to make the behavior occur? And do you have to design them, or can you build it into something they already do? All right, so basically here's kind of the big takeaway. You should be specific, make it easy, and trigger the behavior. Focus on ability, and then iterate it, right? So start off small and iterate and grow the behavior. Celebrate it each and every time, whether it's yourself or someone else. And if you're designing for someone else, you're going to have to figure that out. How are they going to be like, yay, I'm awesome? Like, post the side of the bottom stairs, take the stairs at the side, at the top, you're awesome, you took the stairs. That could be a sign, right? You're triggering to say, hey, I'm awesome. Put hot triggers in front of highly motivated people. And that's it. Do you guys have any questions? Any questions at all? We're done.